Good evening and welcome to the April 15th, 2024 meeting of the Coeur d'Alene Parks and Recreation Commission. Melissa, would you get us started with roll call, please?
Commissioner Cranston,
Here.
Commissioner McDowell,
Here.
Commissioner Lean,
Here.
Commissioner Tate,
Here.
Commissioner Hill,
Here.
Commissioner Bakes,
Here.
Commissioner Wood.
Here.
Thank you. Okay, if everybody would stand, Commissioner McDowell will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do any of the commissioners tonight have a conflict of interest with any of the agenda items? Okay.
None here.
There are none. Then that brings us to our first action item then, would be approval of the December 18th, 2023 meeting minutes.
I move for their approval as presented.
Second.
Okay. The December 18th, 2023 meeting minutes has motion to be approved by Commissioner McDowell and seconded by Commissioner Tate. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Minutes are approved unanimously. Bill, that brings us to staff report.
Nice to see everybody. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff to talk about here, just as FYIs about what's going on in our world out there in the parks. We started turning our water on, so you'll see irrigation starting to run here. We are going to cut back on our irrigation watering in areas that we do not use lake or river water or pond water. So we may see some park areas that are maybe a little more dry spots than you have seen in years past, but we're doing our part to conserve water. So this corridor here, McEwen, City Park, Riverstone, and Atlas all do not use domestic supply. So we'll be running those full hog. Considering putting up a sign at this splash pad, it's a large consumer, and we tried that last year or two ago, and I thought the moms were going to have my head because we cut back the times for their kids to go play in the water. So we're going to put up an educational sign explaining the reasons why we're cutting back water. And so we'll probably cut 2 hours at the front end and 2 hours out the back end. So we'll see. So that way, if somebody should get a call, you might understand the reason why we're trying to save water. We have 160 backflows after we turn that water on to be checked. We have let's see, we have 5 testers in parks and 3 in our buildings division. So those guys are going to get very busy. Having the water turned on, we will start fertilizing this week. So we have almost 200 acres to fertilize. We, a few years ago, stopped fertilizing the narrow strips because of the waste of the product. It's hard to broadcast on a 5-foot strip. So we purchased a sprayer, and now all of these areas that have islands and parking lots, we have better control. We're doing a liquid, so where there's no waste, there's no spillage, and it's working really well. At the same time, we can add in the broadleaf when we apply that, so it's all done in one time. So it works really, really well. That being said, with water turned on, we're starting to open up restrooms. Here in the next week or two, you'll have all the restrooms open, except the ones that got vandalized before we could get even turned on. So we had a guy out working at Bluegrass and was trying to put a tamper-proof lid on a meter and some water valves. And by the time he had to go back to shop for some parts, he came back, the kids destroyed the work that he was performing and tagged the building. The cops were called. They were they were there on the spot pretty fast. And I think the more disheartening part that for my superintendent, he shared this with me, was the kids that were caught. They were giddy. If I had been caught by a police officer doing some damage like that, I would have been beside myself. But they were on their phone, laughing and just carrying on. So Bluegrass, we're going to not open that one up until the moms are more present right now. They're not there because the kids are still in school. So when we have more adults there, we're going to open those up. Last weekend, Northshire got hit real hard. I mean, yes, Northshire. So that one's going to be delayed opening as well. The Winton playground or the restroom, we've always only opened that one up for some years now if we have an event there because it was being vandalized every night. So that's what we're doing with that. Ice rink's all done. They had to resod some of the damage that they did on the south side. We tried something new this year. There's an area where they come in at the parking lot, come across the sidewalk, come across a strip of grass, and come across some asphalt. In between that grass, Jared Odell and his team and Mike Kempton put in a thing called turf block. You may have seen them, where you put it in the ground, you put the seed in it, in these little cells, and it grows through the turf. So it still has a soft appearance to it, so you can still drive on it. So it's a new thing for us. We've never used it, so we'll see how well it goes. If there's other areas that we want to do on the south side next year, we'll consider doing that there as well. This is a fun one. So there was a letter to the editor, I don't know, 6 weeks ago. I've forgotten the date. And Nick had put out a relief program, and the gentleman had a comment about relief and didn't say anything real positive about it other than we should mind our own trees. So he pointed to the trees along the seawall. Now, the seawall trees have been always a real problem. Since I've been here for the last 25 years, irrigation was severed some time back, and we had those trees, we couldn't water anything, so we were hand watering them. So we attempted to replace trees as the wind blew them over. It's a tough spot for a tree to grow. Those plums were getting beat to heck. And so we tried hand watering them. And here was the results of our efforts back when we were doing this. And this tree had been planted for a couple years. It's pretty big. We'd been hand watering it, and they decided that it really looked better in the toilet than it did along the seawall. So that's one aspect of it. So the watering was an issue. Then we were hand watering. This was an issue. And then, was it 2017 that we had to remove all those trees along the Dyke Road? Is that right? 17 or
I believe it was 2015.
15? Okay, so the Coeur, we had to work with them they wanted us to remove all the trees along NIC Dyke, if you remember. We negotiated, we then thinned them out. But any tree along the dike or the seawall has a little brass tag on it with a number. And that number means that they have to go through and they look at, an arborist comes out and verifies the health of each one of those trees. We are not allowed by the Coeur's, guidelines, we can't plant any new trees 50 feet within a seawall or a dike. So we had a plan, Scott set in on this. In the BLM, we kind of addressed a little bit that whole piece would get redone at some time. So when that's redone, those trees will go away, and hopefully we can get some trees on the inside portion where the park side. But that's in response to this letter that to the editor about why we don't take care of our own stuff. We do. There's always a reason around it. We've got a lot of changes in our department as far as personnel goes. Since last August till Mike Kempton this May will be retiring. Between retirees, people resigning, and maybe a couple people that were asked to leave, we've had 8 vacancies.
Wow.
Not even a year. We interviewed the last Friday of last month, and we had for 2 positions, we had 4 really outstanding candidates. And we all said, sitting around there, gosh, I wish we could hire all 4. Well, we offered it to the top 2. That following week, we had an unexpected resignation, so we dipped in and took the 3rd person. Last Friday, a gentleman walked in my office and resigned because he got a better paying job over in Post Falls. Great guy. Sorry he left, but it works out better for his lifestyle anyway. So we now have hired the 4th guy.
Wow.
So our wish came true when we said, gosh, I wish we could hire all 4. Well, we did. So We're reshuffling the staff around right now because we've got so many green people, we have to spread some of the institutional knowledge around so that we're not putting everybody green in one area, right? So we're working through that. Seasonal positions are up. We've had probably a dozen or more applicants come through. Erickson's gonna, I think, end up getting 8, is what he told me today. Again, on this thing about trying to save water, there's a grass strip along Ramsey Park on the east side between the sidewalk and Ramsey Road. And it varies anywhere from 2 feet to 5 feet wide. It's our biggest valve that's out there. It's a long run. And we water more asphalt and concrete than we do water, or the grass. So we removed the grass. So we capped off those valves, removed that whole strip, and now we won't be wasting water. We did the same thing at Bryan Elementary, or next to Bryan Elementary to Bryan Field. That had a little grass strip the same way. And then next year, we're going to budget for Persons Field along 15th. It's got the same deal. That'll be a little different because we'll have to put in irrigation for the trees that are there, but that'll be drip, subsurface, so we won't waste any water, but we'll certainly save water by not watering mostly the concrete. We're working with Winton School. Is that Winton? The PTA is, how do I get this one open bigger? Yeah, what? Cancel, there, okay. There we go, thank you. It's hard to see. We share this with the school district. This dog leg is owned by the city. This cuts the field right in half. This is school district property here. They want to put in a new playground. So they've been working with Virtus, and the PTA's been doing all the fundraising. They'll replace any of the damaged irrigation heads that are here, so that they're going to fence this off so our guys still come in here and mow this. So just as a heads up, we're working with them. Their fundraising has not reached its fruition yet, but I've been working with them for, I don't know, almost a year. We've been talking about it. I don't know if they're going to get it up and running this year with the fundraising or not, but anyway, I wanted to share that one with you guys.
How much do they need to raise?
Pardon me?
How much do they need to raise?
Another 150, I think, maybe 125.
Oh, my God.
Playgrounds are not cheap. I just got a quote to replace the fall zone out here for this new one. That's only new, it's 10 years old now. It's losing some of its bounce, and I have to budget just about $290,000 to have that replaced. That's just the surfacing material. That's not the apparatus. So it's expensive, yes. When you're doing the quality stuff, it's expensive. You can go to Home Depot and buy something for your backyard, but it's not the same.
It's hard to get there through a bake sale.
Right. Our staff, pretty talented group of guys. There's a parking lot over in Midtown off of 4th Street. We installed an irrigation system there with a subsurface. Nick planted some trees, and we went ahead and sprayed that with clover, so we're not going to mow it. So our staff went out there, knocked it out in about, Robert and company got it done in 4 or 5 days. Yeah, something like that. So, and then we used this new hydroseeder we bought. Robert over in the cemetery, when we come out of the winter, he has anywhere from 10 to 15 graves that he has to reseed. So we were able to buy this hydroseeder. It took him no time at all to go out there with the hydroseeder. And so we use that out here around this gazebo where we had to put in seed, and around some areas where the ice rink was. So it's going to be a really good investment for us and it's a 200-gallon tank, so it holds enough. We put it in the back of an ATV or RTV really, and it does great. So, and the mooring docks are coming along. They'll be up and running before the season begins. I talked to you about and we are budgeting for a new playground at Bluegrass because A big portion of that was burnt last year with vandalism. So, and most of that's an old wooden structure, and that is 27 or 8 years old, and they're checking really bad and twisting, so when we try and get components to fit, it won't line up. So we're budgeting this year a new playground there that doesn't have any wood in it. So when that gets here, that we're budgeting for this year, we'll try and get it installed this fall and then remove the other components and just keep that one going. And I think I covered all the good stuff that's going on. Any
Bill, I
questions
guess-
about any of that?
With all the vandalism that's going on and your discussions with the police department, at this point, we've just been reactive to the damage that's been done. Is there any ideas floating out there how,
No, we.
Could be more
When we
proactive.
catch them, we seek restitution, and sometimes we get it, and sometimes we don't. So, and let me say this, the police have been very responsive. I mean, this, though, was it not last weekend, the weekend before last, McLeod called me about some graffiti or something that was hate in nature, and my staff had already removed 2 of the 3, and we documented it and gave it to the police. So we're on high alert about that kind of stuff.
Mike?
We talked about this before, and we talked about the potential for some game camera type, motion-activated cameras.
So what we've done is we are budgeting this year for, we need a phone line so that we can communicate. So we're going to get a phone number and a puck on those more remote areas that are off our network. So at least we can go back to the cameras, because now the cameras are pretty sophisticated. We can dial them in with your phone, and we can download them to the phone. Where old cameras, you actually had to manually get there and move the lens around. So we are going to do that in this year's budget Ericsson's working on the number of phone lines we need and what the monthly costs or the yearly costs are going to be, and then absorb that into the budget with the purchase of these cameras in the more remote sites. So like, we'll get some cameras also at Atlas, but that has fiber to it now. So we'll get that up and running as well. So that'll be included in the budget as well.
Okay. Let's see.
Yeah. Do you have a ballpark idea of what the impact of the budget has been just the last year in dealing with damage?
Well, here's a good example, right outside here. When this was vandalized, the basketball court, that was $12,000 to replace. Now, that didn't even include our staff time to attempt to clean it up, but they'd use an oil-based paint. We couldn't get it up, and so we waited for a budget cycle. I budgeted for it, and we got it resurfaced, and it was in pretty good shape. It was only 5 years old when it got tagged. One of the things that I see, it's the actual hard costs aren't that bad, but the effects on my staff and the community is much bigger, in that the restrooms aren't going to be opened, okay? My staff is stretched hard enough now, thin enough, that they work hard and they really want to present a good park and a good bathroom and a good facility. And then they work hard at it, and then overnight it gets just thrashed. Last year, it seemed like the skate park, Northshire, and Bluegrass, and it seems to be, it's on a cycle. You can never tell. I don't know, maybe what kids move in or whatever it is. But it seemed like there was hit more weekends. It was closed more than it was open, let me say that. Because we'd clean it up, shut it down. We'd shut it down and then get some time. Usually it happens on a weekend, so weekend staff doesn't have time. And so we would then make time that Tuesday or Wednesday and get it ready for the next weekend. It get hit again. So it was open for 2 or 3 days before they just destroy it. You know, they're doing stuff like tearing, paper dispensers off the wall, busting sinks, busting toilets, writing graffiti, painting graffiti. I mean, and so we lock it up until we have an opportunity to get back with more staff available and get it done, and it happens again.
My God.
Christie?
Bill, you talked about the PD caught the ones at Bluegrass Park, and they were fairly glib. I'll tell you, they won't be when they sit down in front of a judge. But I would suggest, and maybe you're already doing this, when you're filing for your restitution, I think it needs to be a much more expansive statement, just like the one you made right there. This impacts the community. We're not going to open these restrooms because of this kind of vandalism, rather than just, here's what it cost us. It's the cost to the community, and I think it's very powerful the way that you put it.
Right. Well, and here's a really another sad statement about the kids chuckling on their phone. I used to do, what do you call it? Mediation, where I'd go in with the kids and talk to them about the thing. It doesn't affect them. So I quit going to those because I would sit there and pour my heart out like I'm doing it with you, and there's no effect. So it was worthless. Then it was a real eye-opener for me where somebody was caught, and we thought, okay, we'll put them to work, right? Just get a taste of what it's like. So we choose the worst day in the world, the 4th of July, in City Park. Okay? Busy. Trash all day long, bathrooms all day long. So the young man shows up with his parents. He's got kind of a surly attitude, cavalier. His dad didn't give a hooey about him being there. And the kid disappeared within 15 minutes. And it's like, I could see where the problem was. It was with the parents. So I don't know how we can fix that. You
Hold
guys
them
are all educators.
financially
You
accountable.
experienced this
Yeah.
a bunch. And so I just don't know what the answer is.
Well, Jim can tell you this too. Juvenile diversion is actually very effective, but what they need is that feedback. And are they following through on what they were supposed to be doing? And I think when you file for your restitution, there needs to be a statement in there about the impact to the community.
Well, let me ask you this. I mean, one of the things that we don't file on restitution, we're asked for hard costs. We're not asked for labor costs.
Right. That
So-
should be
and
included.
so that's the big issue. I mean,
Yeah.
a can of paint's, nowadays, it's still kind of expensive. It's $50 for a gallon.
Is there anything to prevent you from adding it? Just because they didn't ask for it, I would add it.
Maybe we will. We'll start,
Yeah.
really going at it because we were asked to exclude labor. It was hard costs.
Yeah, that's insane, because you're right, it is the cost to your crew and the
Right.
time, and then the citizens,
Right.
so.
Yes, sir.
Well, it might be worthy of spending some time with some people to brainstorm some ideas, because you've got people that that vandalize and get caught. Are they vandalizing again?
I'm not law enforcement. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that would be important, because if it's not,
Right.
basically what we've talked about was we're doing it after the fact, how to get word out that these could be the consequences, that, does the neighborhood know this is going on? Do they know the bathroom's not open because of vandalism?
Yes, we post signs. We do. And here.
No, but I mean, do they know?
Well-
Because they don't maybe come to the bathroom. Is it be worthy of sending out a newsletter to the neighborhood to be on the lookout for this, if this is happening? I just brainstorm some ideas, because we have to get out in front of it and stop it. If the people that get caught, they often act like it's not a big deal, but like.
Right. I think Monty had discovered, was it last year, Monty, about the TikTok challenge? So this was, last year when it started getting really bad, was that they were actually documenting their vandalism. And it was like a one-up, some kind of deal
Right.
where they do this and then somebody's got to do something else and they do it
Right.
again. And so Monty was having the same tag going for most of the summer, where he was painting over stuff and it was just the same.
And they documented it?
They
Sometimes that's
documented on
called-
TikTok.
Sometimes that's called good evidence.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Right, so we do our due diligence, and I know police are very busy, so every time we have graffiti, we document it, we get a police report, and we send it to them. And, we get sometimes some restitution checks, but I don't know where most of those end up landing.
Did they not go to the parks budget?
Yeah, there goes what
Oh.
little we get back, sure.
Yeah. Well, the only other question I had, Mr. Chairman, did you guys use Coeur d'Alene this year?
Say it again?
Did you use Coeur d'Alene this year? Are you spreading that lovely stuff everywhere?
We are using it in some locations.
Oh, but not
Yeah.
general.
Right, we'll use it here in the beds like we've done every year. So, yeah, and Mike said how much he gave away, and I can't remember. It was a lot. 700 yards.
Yeah, it's all over my yard.
Mike?
Yeah, Bill, could you talk a little bit, are we in a water shortage at this time? You talked about several measures to conserve water. Is there a water shortage in Coeur d'Alene?
It's not so much a water shortage as it is water delivery.
Right.
So that's the difference in what the water department can supply pressurized. And so what they asked us last year to do, which you're going to up that a little bit, they had us in the school district on alternating days so that the demand on the system wasn't as great.
Okay.
There is a heightened sense of need to, it's a resource and not to misuse it. Terry Pickle, before he retired, had told me that our aquifer is in pretty good shape because people were concerned that we were drawing it down to the point that there was going to be a big hole and the earth was going to collapse. But that's not true. It's just really about what we can provide as a domestic pressurized line.
Okay.
Yeah. And our
So
next
it's a
park,
system
if we
shortage.
build one that
Well
we're
capacity.
considering, I'm going to change the park design on its ear a little bit in that we've always used some bluegrass blend, but I'm going to go more to a fescue blend that's less water consumer with a lot less grass, and most of the park is going to be a treed park. It's going to be, I've even got a name picked out for it. So I'm hoping before my retirement, I can get this thing to the finish line.
Okay,
Excellent.
good, thank you.
Anything else for Bill? Thank you, Bill. Good report. Do any of the commissioners tonight have any comments or announcements? Okay. Is there anyone in our audience tonight that's not already part of an agenda item that wishes to address the commission? Okay. All right. Moving along then, we're going to move to our next action item, which is the Independence Point concession agreement. Bill, I'll go ahead and read the staff report, and then you can lead us from there. Again, the subject is a 3-year agreement for food concession to Independence Point. The decision tonight is should the Parks and Recreation Commission recommend to council a food concession agreement with Majestic Eagle LLC for the 2024, 25, and 26 seasons at Independence Point. We have had a vendor at this location for more than 30 years. The previous vendor was unable to continue at this site. We advertised for requests for proposals on February 29th and March 13th of 2024, with a closing date of March 21st, 2024, and we did not receive any bidders. The following week, we were contacted by Rafi Peltekian, who expressed interest in this location to serve wood-fired pizza and soft drinks. The fees will be $4,500 for year 2024, $5,000 for 2025, and $6,000 for 2026. The prorated payment for the 2024 year will be made by June 20th, 2024. Thereafter, the due date will be by April 1st for each subsequent year. Payment will be made to the City Parks and Recreation Department and will be deposited into the Parks Capital Improvement Fund. Mr. Peltekian has been operating in Rathdrum at various locations for the last couple of years and recently moved into a brick-and-mortar building formerly occupied by Firehouse Subs on Appleway. The wood fire ovens are enclosed in his food truck and have already been approved by the city's fire department. A food vendor at Independence Point provides a service to the public that we do not provide. It is in good location that is well-known and visible to park visitors. Again, the decision, the Parks and Recreation Commission should recommend that council enter into a food concession agreement with Majestic Eagle LLC for the 2024, 25, and 26 seasons at Independence Point to serve wood-fired pizzas and soft drinks. Bill, do you have anything to add?
No, I was really disappointed that we didn't have any responsive bidders, and it was a blessing, really, that Rafi showed up 10 days afterwards, and he had come in talking to Kelly Settlers about his permit for the brick and mortar location that's identified in the staff report. And she said to him, gosh, you should probably go over and talk to Parks because they've got a spot, what he's doing already in Rathdrum. And so he came over, we chatted, and then I thought, well, gosh, this sounds like a good deal. And so we negotiated the price point. Like I said, he's going to get a late start this year, so we'll prorate based on that first year's cost. I opted to go this direction rather to get him in, rather than we usually do that CPI increase, which is a nominal number. That's why I framed it this way, so it's a much bigger jump, because I wanted to get 6,000 there, so we get there, but it was like, there wasn't as much, I don't know if it was an interest or it was a failure on my part to how it was advertised, that we didn't really cast a net wide enough to all of the people that are doing food truck businesses. So anyway, so that's why it's worked out that way. I think Rafi was going to attempt to be here, but I think I told you back in the room there that he had some training for employees, and I said it wasn't really necessary, but he seems like a upbeat guy. I'm looking forward to working with him.
Great. Any questions or comments, discussion? We'll entertain a motion then.
I guess I would offer a motion that the Parks and Recreation Commission recommend that the city council enter into a food concession agreement with Majestic Eagle LLC for 24, 25, and 26 seasons at Independence Point to serve wood-fired pizza and soft drinks.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Motion's been made by Commissioner McDowell and seconded by Commissioner Lean that the Parks and Recreation Commission recommend that council enter a food concession agreement with Majestic Eagle LLC for the 2024, 25, and 26 seasons at Independence Point to serve wood-fired pizzas and soft drinks. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. That motion's unanimous. I guess where does it go from here, Bill?
General services and then on the council.
Okay, thank you. Well, it'll be good to have that location occupied by
Yeah.
a food vendor this summer. It's
Nice.
So
prime spot.
Yeah.
Okay. That's going to bring us to a presentation regarding the Fippany Stormwater Project.
So we've done this at several parks, working with streets and stormwater. We did it here at McEwen, where we took some of the outfall that goes into the lake, and we took it from Front Street, 4th, 5th, and 6th, and we brought it in the parking garage, and it goes out to the end of the park down here in an area that I lovingly call Lake Boyd. A big shout out to Phil Boyd. So we've done it there. Last year, Todd and his team took an outfall offline that goes into the 11th Street Beach. And we put that water in at East Tubbs Park in some dry wells under the grass. This one's a little different in that he's here to talk to it along with Justin, his engineer, about what we're doing here. This area is the south end of the park, and it doesn't get as much action as this area. And so what we're trying to do is capture this areas, and he'll have some stats for your gallons, where it's going down into the lake. So this is really about lake health. So we've always wanted a connecting path, like we do at a lot of parks, where we actually walk all the way around it. And this whole area, the stormwater treatment is here. There's a couple of trees that will have to be removed, and Nick and I talked about this. The trees that were here that we want to remove will be replaced, and some of those are ash trees. And ash trees on our no plant list right now because the emerald ash borer is coming our way, and it's going to decimate our ash here in our area. So we're going to replace all of those, and this whole area will be our clover, and so we won't mow this. So again, it'll help the pollinators. We won't mow it, and we'll take a big source of outfall that's going in the lake and treat it here. So with that, I can bring Todd up and his engineer, and I guess Chris might even have something to say about it.
Thank you for having us here tonight. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Todd Fusier. I'm the Director of the Streets and Engineering Department. As Bill brought up, we have been working the last several years on lake health, and we've been getting grants from the state to put into reducing phosphorus going into the lake. So we've had a lot of big projects, bigger swales at La Crosse on Highway 95. There was a partnership with ITD. It is hard to find places to take the water to, and so we really appreciate this partnership to utilize this park and a little bit of the space. The project was originally named Independence Point, and when we first started looking at this, that's where the outfall goes into the lake. The problem is that parking lot at Independence Point every few years likes to flood, and we can't really put something there in that floodplain. So we started looking at options. One of the options was we'd start up north and reduce the amount of water that gets down to Independence Point. So at this time, I'd like to bring Justin Shaw up here from H&H Engineering. He's come up with the design. He's been working with us, and he will have some good information.
Todd, I appreciate it. Justin Shaw, HMH Engineering. Been working on stormwater projects with the city here for several years now, I think 4 years maybe. And they're just fun. Like this is, we live in such a cool place because we have, you know, the natural environment and all that. But from a drainage side, we have amazing infiltration. We have some of the best soil to work with. I cut my teeth in Louisiana, and you're just working with clay, and you can't infiltrate. Here, we have some great sands, some great gravels that really infiltrate water. And how I like to view that, and this project is a great example of it, as Todd was saying, we're trying to reduce water getting to the lake, right? There is a phosphorus reduction that we're trying to do to improve water quality for us, for our future, for the existing environment. And this leans into that really well. We're able to take and utilize city infrastructure and repurpose it to help out with our quality of life further on down the line. And so what we're doing here, as you can see on the top part of the page, there's an existing storm drain system. So we've got 12-inch pipes with catch basins. It's an urbanized system. Runoff gets into these catch basins, it runs down the pipe, there's no treatment, it outfalls into the lake. And that's why when you come up and you see a good runoff event, you can come up to an outfall and you'll see dirty water, debris, and trash going right into the lake. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna catch that water, we're gonna divert it, put it into a 90-degree turn, and drop it into the park. I'm gonna kind of point at some areas over here as I walk over. But this area down here.
Can you please use the mouse so we can hear you?
Yes, I can. So this area down here, oh, that's way easier.
Yeah.
This area down here, we're gonna put a big swale in. And so that swale is gonna be, I wanna say, Finn, 7-8 feet at the deepest?
Yes.
So it'd be 7 to 8 feet at the deepest. It's flat bottomed down here. We're at a 4-to-1 slope coming up. And so what that means is for every foot in elevation that you come up, you go 4 feet out. 4-to-1 is mobile, transversible. It's a safety slope. Anybody can access it. Anybody can come out. I shouldn't say anybody. If you have good mobility, you can come in and out of that slope. It's not a hazard for slipping or for being stuck in there. The premise of this is we have the water come in to the swale. It's now being able to infiltrate through the clover that we're going to be planting in there. As the water rises and we have big storm events, we're putting in dry wells. We're going to put in more dry wells than required as a safety feature. You get about, roughly in a 25-year event, you get 2 cubic feet per second of runoff. So that is a box, 2 feet of water hitting it every second. These dry wells do roughly about 1 CFS each. So we basically doubled the amount. The idea there being that there should be very little overflow coming in or leaving the site. So what's going to happen, water's going to run in, infiltrate. Say we have a crazy large event, not able to handle it, we're going to put an overflow pipe back out that connects back into the system. We're also exploring the option of grabbing runoff on 7th and running it over. This is going to be based on cost of project, so we're going to scope it out, see if we can fit it in there. It'll add a little bit more treatment. Right now, I think we're treating, I want to say it's like 30-something acres. I'll have to go back and look at the basin, but we've got a pretty good-sized drainage basin that's draining to this area. And yeah, just trying to improve some lake water, pull that outfall mostly offline. as best as we can as we're reducing water going through, utilizing the existing infrastructure. I'm trying to think of what else would be important that you guys would like to see. We're going to be putting in a walking path to give a good connection from east to west across the park. Yeah. So if you have any questions, please let me know. I'd love to talk about it.
Bridget?
This may be a naive question, but
Yes, ma'am.
where is all this water coming from?
So this is coming from the north. I should have brought my basin map so I could show you. But it's coming from uptown. Gosh, what would you say? Probably a quarter to maybe a half mile north of here. It's collecting in the neighborhoods and the roadsides. And we have a pretty extensive pipe network underneath the road that's conveying all that runoff. So anytime that you're driving, you look down and you see a grate on the side of the road, that's going to be a catch basin that's grabbing that water. And there's several thousands of feet of pipe upstream of this that's pulling water into it.
So that 7th Street neighborhood, Bryan Elementary, maybe that whole area coming down?
It starts at Harrison, basically going south, and so.
Going south.
Yeah,
Okay.
so about
Got it.
33 acres.
Wow.
There's several basins in there, but this one is about 33 acres, so.
Wow. That's interesting.
He was a stats guy. Yes.
Is there any way to guesstimate what the water depth in that might be at a maximum?
Yes, so we're looking at that. The way we've designed it, we're looking at roughly 18 inches at the largest during an event. It'll sink down pretty quickly. It'll infiltrate in.
right.
What we saw in the 95 swale, if you remove frozen conditions, you're able to get, I want to say 4 to 5 inches an hour sinking down.
Okay.
On a conservative side. This one is about in that same ballpark. So I anticipate as we get large events rolling through here, you're going to get the swale to fill up. It'll go into the dry wells. It'll infiltrate through there, and any residual water will be gone within 6 to 12 hours, and it'll be back dry again.
Sounds like the geese will love it.
Yes, yes. Be good for duck hunters later on. We'll see if we can plug it up for them.
Mike?
What's the likelihood of cattails emerging in that area?
Cattails, as a non-plant guy, as more of the stormwater guy, on the 95 swale, I really wanted that type of hardy vegetation to grow. This area, I think, will be maintained more to park standards. So I don't think there'd be a ton of cattails in there. I'm going to pass over to Bill.
No, white clover.
No cattails.
There won't any, not surviving cattails.
And if there's anything else, I'll be over here. Y'all can
That's great.
feel free to bug me. Yes, sir.
Question, this is very interesting and it's taking advantage of our open spaces and our parks. Is there any discussions on future projects or future park projects where this could be taken advantage of as well?
So we do them in every location in our great city. We actually started another project today that it is mainly on Government Way. We're utilizing a lot of those center crossovers there. We're putting underground infiltration trenches, things like that. So that's another one that has started actually this
Going to
year.
ask you about that while you were here. Neighbors were asking me about
Yeah,
that work
so
that started today.
It started today. It's about 45-day project, that one. This project that we've brought forward tonight, we're hoping that it will bid early summer. It's something that we would hope to do this year, so Nick can plant his trees in the fall. We want to do it as quick as we can and before the wet season. We don't currently have any new grants that we're applying for right now, but they seem to come out every year, so we kind of have 2 or 3 going on right now at the same time, so our hands are full with that, but the next round, we like to keep applying for them. I do want to mention, in that swale, we don't want a lot of water sitting there. That ground will take the water pretty quickly. There's 5 dry wells going in there, and they're all 12-foot deep. So the water is gonna come up, 18 inches, and then it's gonna, in fact, we haven't even nailed down the exact height, anywhere from 6 to 18 inches, whatever we set the top of the dry well. Once it gets to the top, it all starts to pour underground. So, it's not like it's gonna build up 4 feet and then just disappear. We will make sure that that overflow that we have will take the water back out to the lake. Every one of these we've done, there's always an overflow, so that if we have, excuse me, a big event and our system can't handle it, it still finds its way back out to the lake. So we're just reducing, we're not eliminating, so, anyway.
Any other questions?
One comment. Last year, we coordinated with the Coeur d'Alene Public Golf Course, and there were a series of dry wells put in to capture stormwater there.
Yes.
And it went very well, and my compliments to the crew that did the work. You would never know they were even there, really.
That was another project we helped the golf course with, and, they partnered with us, and it was to actually delete a pipe that went under I-90 as they're getting ready to build or make I-90 wider. We had to do something with the water, so, yeah, we do a lot of this kind of work, so.
Yeah, good work.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Todd. I appreciate the presentation. Very interesting. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to Canfield and Tubbs Hill fuel mitigation updates. This is an information item.
Hello. Guys hear me? So I just have a couple quick updates, and then I've got a brief presentation on some of the cool stuff we've been doing in the natural areas and urban forestry and trails. So first off, we got Veteran Centennial Park. That project is wrapped. That area we did some pruning in there to encourage more natural area trail use. No trail has been built, but we did some pruning to encourage animals and people to do that for us. But we have approximately $8,000 left for more on-the-ground work. We're looking at a few areas abutting the Prairie Trail to utilize some of those funds, working with the project manager, clean out dead material and make that fire safe for residents using the trail, as well as the commercial property owners abutting that natural area. So we're looking to get that into the bidding process soon, get contractors out to use up those remaining funds. We do have till November of 2024 to use those funds up. So Canfield Mountain, we've got $126,000 for on-the-ground work. That project expires November 30th, 2025, so we've got some time to get going on that. However, we're not waiting around. The project manager has been on site, marking out the perimeters and developing his prescription. We'll be reviewing that prescription, and then that project will go out for bid. We plan on having that project go out for bid and looking to get a contractor in place at the end of the month. So,
Had any of you commissioners had an opportunity to go up and see what we did for Nan?
Yes.
It's the same process. And Troy and I went up there after Nick had coordinated this with the county, and the same guy, Steve Liddell, is going to be doing the work. It was remarkable. I mean, I actually went up there and watched the masticating machine tear up the brush, and they did some burn piles, and the fire department did those later in the winter. And our idea is going to be the same for Tubbs, and just the results there is really good. And so we're real hopeful when we get to Tubbs. I just wanted to interject that, and we will also, one of the things that we talked with the Canfield folks was that around those homes, we're going to deal with some of those ladder fuels that are closer to those properties on that one side, or actually the two sides. The other stuff abuts Forest Service land. So there's some homes around there that we will address that at the Canfield site.
yeah, no, we've been real fortunate with our partners at the county that have worked on these projects with us, and Steve Bladel at Inlet, and he's been so good with these projects and recognizing our goals and our visions with these public lands. And he's just got it. He knows what our goals are. He knows the kind of light touch we want to use. He knows where our priorities are, and he's going to work to create a fuel break on Canfield for those residential homes, just like Bill talked about. And then there'll be a lot more groundwork, handwork on Canfield, just because it's not as accessible as maybe Fernand was. But yeah, I'm excited about the project. The nicest thing about this project is it's $126,000. It's just money. We get to contract the work. The work gets done. The city doesn't have an in-kind match, excuse me, of any kind that we have to bring to the table. So that part of it's really cool. Essentially, when we get into talking about Tubbs Hill we have been notified that we are receiving we have received that grant. We are waiting for the final MOU, which is the memo of understanding from the state. I expect that any day. I've expected it any day for a little while, but I should see it any day. We are in talks about the preliminary prescription for that. We are going to be involving people from the Tubbs Hill Foundation to get their input, and there'll be a large public process when we actually write that prescription and share all that information with you, with the public. And we will do the same thing. I'll come to you guys again when I actually have that prescription in hand for Canfield, and with Tubbs, of course, show you what we're doing, where we're doing it, what we expect the work to look like, and some solid timetables.
In the Tubbs one, where there's a match, right?
The Tubbs, we do have a match. The majority of that match, fortunately, is direct funds from us and from Tubbs Hill. So the nice thing
So I
is,
wanted to give a shout out to Tubbs Hill Foundation, because we're putting in 50% of the match as they are, and I think it's, maybe we're putting in 20, they're putting in 12 or 15, I can't recall, but nonetheless, I want to let you know that they are participating financially as well.
yeah, I can't remember the exact amount that they put in, and I don't want to say it because if I say it wrong, they'll look at me sideways at the next meeting. But no, I want to be clear, without Tubbs Hill and their Tubbs Hill Foundation, them working with us and giving these funds, it would have been a lot more difficult to receive that grant. Having direct contribution makes us an ideal candidate for the state because they don't have to worry about where that match is going to come from. So just echoing Bill, as always, thanks you to that group, Tubbs Hill Foundation, for the amazing work that they do and for always being such a great partner to the city of Coeur d'Alene.
Did you see all the trail pictures in paper?
Yeah.
That's them working with us. I mean, it's a great partnership.
They're amazing.
See the slideshow. I can't see it. See it, Monty? Slideshow. You see it? Okay. So speaking of Tubbs Hill, this is some work that Monty McCulley, Tyler Long, other trail employee, and the Tubbs Hill Foundation, we all worked together to build this really cool retaining wall on Tubbs Hill. This is a high-use area. As you can see on the left, this retaining wall was in really poor shape, beginning to fail. This was basically just a bunch of timbers that were essentially bolted through with rebar material. We were able to pull this out. This is a really cool construction style. We have these are poles that are in the ground and braced from side pressure and from and anchored in the ground, and then they have a back pressure that goes into the hill that you can't see. We had to excavate that all out. It has this really neat look. It's really easy construction once you get those poles in. This is metal sleeves that go over all those poles, and then these planks all go through with this top cap. It was a really good project. We spent 3 days up there demoing this and then constructing it. It started out pretty rough, getting going, trying to figure out how exactly to build these things. But by the end of it, we were able to do about 3 times the work in 1 day that we did the first 2 days and wrapped it up pretty well. And so far it's holding up really well. Trail looks really nice. And you're going to start seeing these all over the trail as we go to replace these different portions that are in poor shape, these different walls. Starting with, we have a project just on the hill here by McEwen where you'll see a small portion of this. We are able to purchase some equipment that will help us to continue to construct these, and pretty excited about the construction.
So the wall on the left, we installed that in 2000. Wow. Okay, so the trail was in much worse shape. It was failing. At that time, they were using railroad ties. Okay, so we had to remove all those railroad ties. Tom Freeman with CDF Landscaping did that work for us, so that's how long ago it was. And they've held up pretty well. It's 20-plus years. So, but as Nick said, we're buying more equipment, so we're going to continue this process as we go forward, because there was probably, what, guys, 10, 12 of these groupings? I mean, not individual walls, but the areas probably like that?
And several more than needed.
Okay. So anyway, we're going to attack these as we can, and you know, underneath some of this, before the one on the left, it was hollow underneath. it was like a shell. This surface tension was holding it up. So Tom filled all that stuff in. These guys found the same thing, so they've all tamped down. But I'm real excited and this is the wall that we use over at the east side when we put in the McTevia trail with that ADA, or, not ADA, but it's accessible trail. And so the gentleman who did that work for us at the time is retired, but he was nice enough to come in and educate these two gentlemen and give him all the drawings and all the instructions how to do it. So now they're off and running.
Yeah, I'm surprised too just how solid of a construction that wall really is. When we built it, I was really impressed by the method that Marvin came up with. So on to the next slide. So we've got, at the Urban Forestry Department, we've got our Relief Coeur d'Alene planting program. This is our yearly planting program for single-family residential homes in Coeur d'Alene, incorporated limits only. I'm sorry, Hayden and Post Falls, but this program is really great. We're going to plant 65 trees in right-of-way locations. We have black tupelo, English oak, green spire linden, emerald sunshine elm, and I have some Coosa dogwoods purchased for the overhead utility areas. Luckily, we didn't get that many of those this year just because we prefer to plant trees with a larger canopy. Really, we only like to plant those power line rated trees where we absolutely have to. But no, we're going to start planting after Arbor Day, last week of the month. We have our crews that are out marking locations right now and dialing everything in. But it's a great program. Happy we get to do it once again. We are also, just as a note, with the savings we had last year from not contracting a planting crew, we were able to purchase a dump trailer that we used for that planting. We did that in-house with our staff. We're doing that once again. You don't have to purchase the trailer this time, so that's a direct result savings of about $10,000 to $14,000 general price we get on the planting quote. So saves a lot of money, and hopefully we can continue to put those funds into more planting projects or ways to grow our department. So I just have a quick presentation. I was asked to do this presentation for a local timber group about how we utilize urban wood here in Coeur d'Alene, and not just the Parks Department, but Street Department, and Engineering Department. They have a big hand in this as well as the Wastewater Department in helping us, and Water, all in helping us to get rid of the things that trees produce in Coeur d'Alene, which is wood and debris. So first, a couple quick things just to run through this. There's all kinds of different things that come from trees, right? One is wood chips, and we have public and private crews that deliver their chips, public being our crews, deliver chips to the wastewater compost facility, as well as private crews deliver there. And they're able to supplement some of the wood chips that they use in that Coeur green that was mentioned earlier with this material. They also purchase material from logging companies, but this keeps us from putting those wood chips directly in the landfill. That gets incorporated into that compost. We also take our wood chips where we can't use them in the department or in the compost facility to different recycling companies throughout town. We take them to Cannon Hill, where they take those chips and incorporate them into different products. They create their own compost topsoil. They also create things, plywood type materials, composite wood materials. So that is repurposed and put into something other than a landfill. And all the chips that we produce here at the city Coeur d'Alene Parks Department are either dropped off at that wastewater department or taken to a recycling center. So none of that goes into the landfill. Other things we can do with them, use them as trail lining. We're looking at some projects in some of our future parks where we may be able to do that more. We use them as planting mulch. It's all put into the compost that we use as planting mulch. Sometimes we use those chips as fill material. We can't use them in playgrounds that have to be fall rated, but we have a few spots throughout where we've done a project where we can use those chips and put them as a material in that area. And then also, ideas for the future, you could have public giveaways with that. If you have leftover material, some people could use that in their garden, in their bed, similar to where they do the compost giveaway, which they're already doing by giving away this compost. The other is foliage, right? So we all know of Leaf Fest Coeur d'Alene. Here's the crews hard at work. Probably one of the coolest programs in the entire city, clean up those leaves and those needles. Another cool thing that probably a lot of people don't know that they do with that material is first they store it here at their yard, and then they hire a mulching company, I believe it's Cannon Hill, comes in and they chip all this material up. Here it is. They're spreading this disposal. They're using it as soil improvement out at some property owned by the airport, and then they disc this in, and it's integrated into the soil, and it's creating a much more fertile planting space by soil incorporation. They also use this at the Forest Service nursery. So just a super cool way to take a waste material and turn it into something that is great for the environment and great for the public. Then we have logs. That's mostly produced by us. This kind of started organically when we had an unfortunate event, which was the 2021 windstorm. And all of a sudden we had a bunch of wood that we had to figure out what to do with. And what do? Do we log it all off? Do we throw it away? Do we bring it to Cannon Hill? So we put our heads together and used some budget money to purchase this Wood-Mizer mill. Cost about $5,500, I believe, when they purchased it. Super cool machine, not very difficult to use, and we're able to use it to create slabs that you can see here. And then we can actually take these slabs, dry them, and turn them into milled lumber. And then that milled lumber can be used for all kinds of construction projects. Those slabs can be used for all kinds of construction projects. Some of those construction projects you can see here. Of course, this all relies on talent. This doesn't work without talented individuals who can do this work in our own department. And we've been really fortunate to have that talent. You've got a really cool live edge bench here that's going in at City Park. This is a bench on downtown, in the downtown core in Sherman Avenue. This was the original bench here, is that the sides. These are like a trapezoidal piece of wood, and we had a really talented carpenter who was able to reproduce that using this urban wood and refill that bench downtown, which would have been remarkably expensive to do if we weren't creating it in-house. And these are we've installed, I think, 10 of these benches, roughly.
5. We had 10, but we have them in use installation at other locations.
So 5 of these at McEwen Park, and it's a simple, it just is just dimensional lumber, but this is all recovered wood made from trees that we lost in Coeur d'Alene. And just to be clear, we're not out picking trees to cut down to harvest for this timber. This is all things that happen from either a tree that happened to die or something in the natural area that we lost.
So I want to give Tom Meek a shout out. So we did the lumber and the dimensional lumber, but we've got a couple of really talented guys at our shop, and they fabbed the footings or the legs of this bench. So all this was done in-house.
Yeah, it's really a testament to some of the talent that we have here at the department. And, these guys, they put a lot of time and effort and, their heart and soul into some of these pieces. This is not as beautiful of a piece of work, but it's pretty nice and it's pretty necessary. This is at the 17th Street Pocket Park. This is our porta potty facility structure, and all of this wood is from recovered material as well. This was all built in-house, the structure.
Stop there.
No, this was we gave a scout the lumber, and so it was an Eagle Scout project.
Excellent.
Thank you, Bill. Even cooler. The Eagle Scout did it. We did the roof in-house as well. So I did that in-house.
You
so,
did that.
So yeah, but no, pretty cool to find so many different ways to use this wood. And then the last is firewood, good old firewood. Mm-hmm. Here's our firewood pile at our shop. Not very pretty, but it's going to get chopped up, burnt, and not thrown into the landfill as well. There's also opportunities to donate this wood. It's getting harder and harder to find places to donate firewood. We have had talks where if we have too much of a stock supply, maybe one day we can give it away to the public. You got to be careful about how you do that, make sure it's safe. But if we ever get too much, we have another wind event, they wanted to move on from it. Bonnie Warwick, great lady, and maybe some of you may know her from local garden club, called us up, said, I'd love to donate this tree to you guys. We looked around for some spading companies, didn't have any luck. If you guys are familiar with tree spades, pretty cool piece of equipment. Comes in and actually spades around the tree, lifts it out of the ground. But we still didn't want to give up on it, so we were able to do it with our crew. We came out, dug the tree out by hand, used our tractor to pluck it out of the ground, got a real nice root ball, and we're going to be planting that tree at Atlas Park on Arbor Day. So that'll be one of the 6 Arbor Day trees that we plant. Will be that tree that's being relocated from a residential home.
Do we have bristle cones in the park anywhere?
We do have a few bristle pines around town. Probably the largest one is actually at the Cherry Hill Fire Station Landscaping. But they're a pretty cool tree. If you're not familiar with bristle pine, they are, in the Sierra Nevadas, they're the oldest living trees on Earth. There's a stand in Sierra Nevadas that are about 15,000 years old. So pretty cool. They don't look very impressive because they're that old. There's not much alive left on them, but they're pretty cool either way. So anyway, that's what we got going on with the department. I hope anybody that wants to come down and join in, eat some donuts and plant some trees on Arbor Day this year will. We're also going to be giving away seedlings and a few other Arbor Day giveaways, a few large-scale trees that we'll give away in a free raffle. And then the next day, North Idaho College is going to be doing a drive-through giveaway at the Molstead Library at North Idaho College, I believe around the same time, 11 to 2. So if you have any questions, please call our office about Arbor Day. And that's it.
Thank you, Nick. Any questions?
Wow.
No, good presentation, thank you. Best for last, right, Monty?
Yep.
Next item is an action item, priority corridors. And the decision point tonight, and I know the report has a lot of municipal code numbers in there, so I'll try to get through the report without bungling it here. Should the Parks and Recreation Commission recommend to the Planning and Zoning Commission amendments to the exceptions to sidewalk requirements in Municipal Code 12.28.210, 12.28.230, and 12.28.240 that will allow priority pedestrian corridors be identified. The City of Coeur d'Alene has been in development for over 130 years, and many ordinances have been introduced and amended during that time. In 1974, the city began requiring sidewalks be built with all new construction and with property improvements above a certain dollar amount in existing residential neighborhoods. Municipal Code 12.28.210, 12.28.230, and 12.28.240 provide exceptions to sidewalk construction due to hardship, geographical constraints, and distance. Currently, if the nearest sidewalk or intersection is 450 feet or more away, the property owner is not required to build a new sidewalk. This means sidewalks may never get built in many older areas of the city. Coeur d'Alene is missing sidewalks in 30% of the city. The Ped Bike Committee has identified 12 priority areas that should be removed from the exception. These areas are primarily routes to schools from neighborhoods. There is no direct financial impact on the city other than staff time to change the ordinances. Future sidewalks will be built by property developers. However, the city may also construct sidewalks using grant money or when council approves future sidewalk projects. Identifying priority pedestrian corridors and removing the exceptions to sidewalk construction will help us begin to create a safer, more walkable community. Again, recommendation would be Parks and Recreation should recommend to the Planning and Zoning Commission amendments to the sidewalk exceptions in Municipal Code 12.28.210, 12.28.230, and 12.28.240 that will allow priority pedestrian corridors to be identified. All yours, Monty.
You can blame Randy for putting all the code numbers in there. That wasn't me. Well, good evening. I wanted to talk to you a little bit tonight and have a little short presentation about priority corridors. This has been a project that's been kind of on the back burner for Ped Bike since 2010, I want to say. We first applied for a bike-friendly community back in 2008 and were awarded bronze status, which is not quite intro. I think honorable mention, then bronze, then silver, then gold, then platinum and diamond. And then after our success at getting bronze, we decided to apply for a walk-friendly community. Well, we didn't even get honorable mention, and they said that our sidewalks were terrible. We didn't have a very good walking community, so we've been working on that. We originally brought the idea forward to remove that exception altogether so that anywhere in the city, people would have to build sidewalks if they spent $30,000 or more or develop something in an existing neighborhood. That got shot down. Too many variables, too many older neighborhoods that should be exempt. And instead of just trying to go through and figure that all out, we figured we'd identify the important corridors, ones that were critical or high priority anyway, to get kids to school or get people to walk to connections, and so I got this little presentation to show you. So the objective is to create a complete sidewalk network, and we've identified 12 different areas. We have, let's see, we're trying to reduce the number of pedestrians who need to walk in the street with vehicular traffic. I don't know if you've seen that before. Let's say on Mullen right here, we have the Centennial Trail, a two-way bike lane in the middle of the road. Some of those sections don't have sidewalks, and so you have people in the street pushing strollers in the street, and no sidewalk to go down. So we're trying to identify these areas and get through this. A lot of this we already covered in the staff report. We get to the maps here. So this shows where our current sidewalks are in the city. And you can see down here, I don't know if you can see my mouse very well, but in the southeastern portion of the city, there's a lot of areas, residential areas without sidewalks. Now, I know it looks like it's that way up in the northwest, but these are actually neighborhoods that are either older or are industrial or commercial. So these are the areas that don't have sidewalks. So you can see this pretty large bit folded through the city. You can tell them they're older too. And I have to say that when I said 1974, that was a guess. That's the oldest reference to a date I could see for a sidewalk. But I'm pretty sure it was earlier than that, in the 50s, that we really started making a requirement. But some of these neighborhoods are far older than that. So these are the two together, so you can kind of see it superimposed. It's about 30% of the city doesn't have sidewalks that need it. And these are the corridors that we identified. So I grouped them by access. So the first 6 are Coeur d'Alene High. There's quite a few. If you scroll back up to the map, so you're trying to get people across 15th from this side of town. The zone for the school district is pretty large, so there was a lot of corridors for that particular school alone. And Fernand Elementary also down here is in the southeast, is in that area that's missing a lot of sidewalks. And then we have Winton Elementary, which is another older portion of town. And then the Kroc Center, which is, it's not a school, but a lot of kids go there. So it was considered a high priority as well. So we kind of circled in green the streets that would be the high priority. I don't know if you can see them very well. But I wrote in schools, I wrote in trails, I wrote in the Kroc Center, so you can kind of see where those priority corridors are distributed throughout the city. And the idea is when a contractor comes in and they don't have a sidewalk within 450 feet, we're saying, this is our priority area, so in one of these 12 corridors, you don't get that exemption, you have to build the sidewalk. A lot of developers will do it anyway, just because they know it's good for the community, but some don't. So that's it. Any questions?
So we're not, if we were to pass this, it's not forcing people who've been living there to put in the sidewalk.
That's correct.
Unless they were to rebuild the house or.
Right, or
Is it
spend
still-
over $30,000,
Okay.
yeah.
Any other questions or comments for Monty? Mike?
If there were a financial hardship, is there any mechanism by which people could seek assistance with sidewalk work?
We don't have it now, but we do have a sidewalk program that's on the website. You can go through, and if you need assistance getting your sidewalk fixed, on the city site under, I think Streets and Engineering, there's a page on there that you can apply and get assistance for getting your sidewalk replaced. Now, in this case, you're talking about a developer who's spending a lot of money, so they wouldn't really have that situation. But if another person really needed help with a sidewalk, we do have help for that.
I wasn't so much thinking of developers, but homeowners trying to rebuild or do something of that nature, and
Right.
that'd be a cost maybe they wouldn't anticipate.
Well, that
Right.
speaks a little bit to what Commissioner Lean was asking about. And like Monty said, we wouldn't make people put a sidewalk. It's usually when they're gonna do some new construction and development. So I don't believe that it would be a hardship circumstance, but that's why we're bringing it forward on the more of a business, commercial, you know, when they're redoing something, they're tearing down one of the old homes and then putting in a multi-million-dollar house, we would ask them at the same time, please, you know, install the sidewalk.
Hard to see financial hardship there.
Well, a what-if scenario, though, say somebody had water damage and it cost $30,000 on their home, would they then be required to put a sidewalk in too?
Well, if it was triggered by planning, yes, but at that situation, you could apply for help for a sidewalk, yeah.
I just want to reiterate, the city does have, the engineering department has a cost share program for sidewalk replacement existing. It helps them on a linear feet basis. So there is that existing for homeowners that they can utilize, similar to the cost share program we have for street tree work. So that revenue source, that assistance is there for the public.
And by the time this gets to planning and zoning, I'll get more info on that as well, to make sure.
So
And
these
I'll
are
have
kind of the
dollar
initial
amount, too.
steps through Ped Bike Committee and through Park and Rec Commission to get this moved forward to planning and zoning.
Right, yeah, it came from Ped Bike, taking it to you first, then we're going to planning and zoning, and then to city council.
So the reason we bring this forward, it's a little bit out of your, you know, what you would see, but the Ped Bike falls under us. So the first step was this commission, and that's the reason for it.
And it ties into our whole trails and parks, and we're also connections with sidewalks to trails and to getting people moving out and active.
Well, thank you, Monty. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Is there any further discussion, or
Well, I'd make a
what's the
motion,
group's pleasure here?
I'd make a motion that the Parks and Recreation Committee should recommend to the Planning and Zoning Commission amendments to the sidewalk exceptions in MC 1228, .210, 12.28.230, and 12.28.240 that would allow priority pedestrian corridors to be identified.
Is there a second?
Second? It's a tie.
Who was first?
Bridget?
Motion's been made by Commissioner Lean and seconded by Commissioner Hill. The Parks and Rec Commission should recommend to Planning and Zoning Commission amendments to the sidewalk exceptions in Municipal Code 12.28.210, 12.28.230, and 12.28.240 that will allow priority pedestrian corridors to be identified. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Recommendations unanimous, and I guess this also goes to General Services
I think,
or Public Works?
yeah.
Or does it go to Planning and Zoning?
It'll go planning and zoning and then general services.
Gotcha, that's the order.
Okay.
Okay, very good. That kind of winds up our agenda tonight. Does anybody else have any comments tonight before we make the final announcement of our next meeting date? Okay. Our next regular meeting then of the Parks and Recreation Commission will be Monday, May 20th, 2024, at 5:30 right here in the Library Community Room.
Oh, me.
With that, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion's been made by Commissioner McDowell and seconded by Commissioner Tate to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.